Hey, cybercrime junkies. Today's episode is going to touch on something that affects all industries and is a common challenge to those in cybersecurity: mental health support. Today's episode features a friend of our podcast, Johnny Crowder. If you don't know him yet, Johnny, you may be familiar with his work. He's been featured in Forbes and in Inc. magazines, as well as a very well-known TED Talk speaker. He delivers these moving and emotional messages. He's even been featured in an expose on CNN TV. He created a digital mental health support system called Cope Notes. He launched it back in 2018, and Johnny himself is a suicide attempt survivor and a rock musician who heads up a heavy metal band that tours across the US and Europe called Prison. Cope Notes, his mental health platform, uses daily text messages to improve mental and emotional health, and it works. It contains psychology facts, exercises, and journaling prompts that train the brain to think in healthier patterns. It's now in over 100 countries and growing. Johnny runs the organization, creating it from personal experience as well as clinical data, supported through his association with several leading national mental health associations and his own psychology degree education. In his moving TED Talks, Johnny opens up about his experiences with childhood trauma and mental illness and how that has fostered him to have a passion for advocacy. If you or anyone you know is struggling, please get yourself or your friend help through a professional, and feel free to consider trying out Cope Notes. No matter what approach you choose, help us end the stigma of mental health support. Hope you enjoy the show. This is Cybercrime Junkies. Come join us as we dive deeper behind the scenes of security and cybercrime today, interviewing top leaders from around the world and sharing true cybercrime stories to raise awareness. But first, a huge thank you to all of our executive co-producers who subscribed to our Prime membership and fueled our growth. So please help us keep this going by subscribing for free to our YouTube channel and downloading our episodes on Apple or Spotify podcasts so we can continue to bring you more of what matters. This is Cybercrime Junkies, and now the show. I'm your host, David Morrow. In the studio with me today is my illustrious co-host, Mark Mosher. Mark, how are you?
Hi, I'm doing wonderful today. I'm not in 80-degree Tampa like our special guest, but I'm doing wonderful nonetheless.
Absolutely. We have special guest Johnny Crowder visiting with us today. Johnny, nice to meet you, sir.
Thank you for having me. I want to flip the script and start. I want to ask a question, if I can.
You got it.
The interview is going to start at you. What guitar is that behind you?
It's a Schecter. Yeah, it's where is it? It's a Schecter Diamond Series Electric, and then I've got a Takimi.
There we go.
Yeah, I like the 12 string.
Very, very cool.
For the listeners that don't know, Johnny's got a musical background as well. So.
Yeah, I know. He tours. He's real.
He's a real musician.
I play
if you have calluses on your fingers, you're a real musician.
Oh, yeah, I've got calluses.
Okay, that's the qualifier. All right.
Yeah, I play alone in my room for my biggest fan, me. So that's all I got. So Johnny, welcome. We're really excited about having you. So tell us a little bit about yourself. I mean, we'll delve into the subject matter, some of which you've talked about on your TED Talk, which we'll have a link to in our bio section here of this episode, as well as a link to Cope Notes and your LinkedIn page. So look for that, listeners, in the story of our episode for the podcast today. But tell us a little bit about yourself, man.
I am 28 years old. I have a dog named Pepperoni Pizza. I really like riding my bike. I'm a big supercar fan, so I'm into like Bugattis and Paganis and Ferrari and Lamborghini.
Oh, who isn't? That's awesome.
And I happen to run a mental health company called Cope Notes. I happen to tour in a metal band called Prison. And up until now, my life has been like really, really brutally difficult. So now I'm sitting on an exercise ball, talking to two strangers with a smile on my face. So I think life is kind of, over the last 3 years, really starting to even out. Now that I've gotten a much better handle on my mental health, very thankful to be sober, very thankful to be in a nice living environment. So I am not rags to riches, but I'm rags to clean rags right now. You know, riches are coming up.
I like that.
Well, congratulations on that. And that's no easy task. So mental health is a challenge that has been brought up numerous times by a lot of our guests. It's something that Mark and I are absolutely passionate about people's stories and how they achieve their own and take responsibility for their own mental health. And a lot of the challenges that is brought about by culture, technology, society, things like that.
Well, yeah, right. Because there's almost, and that's what I love about what Johnny does. You're like rebranding mental health in a digital age, man, and it's really cool. So I really want to get into Coke Notes, but it's almost like there's a cultural stigma about even talking about stuff like this sometimes, and that's why I think the more we talk about it, we break that stigma and get out of that. And,
absolutely.
We are human. We are what we are, man, and we got to figure out how to get through and get along. So tell the listeners about Coke Notes. Maybe just start at the top on what it is, and then we'll dig deeper into that.
Yeah, I want to, of course, I'll tell you what Coke Notes is, but first I want to comment on the branding stigma thing. I used to work in advertising and branding. So I worked at a marketing agency, and then I worked at an actual branding agency where I named companies, came up with taglines, designed logos, iconography, brand voice, directed commercials. So you really got to understand what a brand was trying to say. And something that kind of clicked for me when I was working in an agency setting was I was like, man, look at how much time and attention we put into these brands and making sure that people form a positive association with what they're doing. And then I looked at mental health, and I'm like, when you think mental health, you think straitjackets,
right?
And unfortunately violence or imprisonment, and then I was like thinking about mental health and dental health, not just because they rhyme, but because they're very similar in terms of prevention. I think if you see a Dentine Ice commercial, you see this super pretty girl, and she whips her hair back, and she's snowboarding in a casino or something, and it's something so ridiculous. And then at the end, it's Dentine Ice, fresh breath, and we don't see that and go, ew, her breath must have been so gross that she had to do Dentine Ice. And that's a branding thing. So my goal has always been, how do we get people to associate mental and emotional health with images other than the ones that the news try to shove down our throats?
Right. That's a great point. That's a great point. So does that who bears that responsibility? Who's driving that, I guess, is my question. Is that the brand agents of facilities or organizations like NAMI, things like that?
I mean, ultimately, it's a culture thing.
Right.
So, you could show me that exact commercial that I just described, right? So, chick whipping her hair back, snowboarding somehow inside a casino, whatever. When that's happening, if at the end it said TurboTax, I'd be like, screw that.
Right.
Because there's a cultural block there for me.
Right.
I think fresh breath, I have positive associations with that. Taxes, I have negative associations with that culturally. So I don't care what the commercial shows me. It's my preconceived notion. It's what culture and society have fostered in me generationally that I respond with. So yes, of course, people who lead industry are tasked with changing the narrative, but also it's on individual people to do that in little microcosms,
families,
their family
people that
and
are
friends.
raising kids, how they talk about mental health with their kids.
Exactly.
Right? If we're so used to just don't say anything, just smile, be polite, right? It's just denial. Just stick your head right in that sand.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Just deny.
Yeah.
And when in reality, the longer you wait to get therapy and get help and things like that. And I think there's also seems to be a stigma with medication, right? People like, oh, do you need happy pills and things like that? And I'm like, a lot of it is biological. A lot of it is your receptors are not producing what is needed to be done. So you need medication simply to correct the algorithms of the chemicals and the hormones in your body. I mean, it's like if you have a liver condition, you would take the medicine for it. If you have a kidney condition, if you have an infection in your throat or your nose, your ears, you take the medication to clear it up.
Yeah.
It really needs to, that stigma needs to be gone. That's interesting. Share with us your story a little bit. Kind of like what happened before to get you to this place, or if you're more comfortable, what was the epiphany you had that said? Because I know a lot of people that are currently struggling, and I know a lot of people that have recovered, and they always kind of hit that moment. You know, it's a self-awareness. We can't get anybody to that moment. They have to hit the moment where they're like, enough. They put the cigarettes away, they put the booze away, they put the pills away, the weed, whatever it is, and they stay sober.
So I want to answer that, but first I have to ask Mark, should we postpone the describing what Cope Notes is question? Because I want to get back to it, but I feel like
my idea was, let's do Cope Notes and then see how you came to where you are. But since David asked and had a nice segue, then let's learn a little bit more about you. But I really do want to drive home Cope Notes. I want the listeners to be sure and follow you on LinkedIn.
Absolutely.
CopeNotes.com. We'll have it all in the summary of the episode. But maybe let's find out a little bit about how you got here or what brought you to start Cope Notes, and then we'll go from there.
Yeah, I'm just putting myself in the shoes of a listener right now, and I'm like, wow, they're really going to make me wait to hear about it. And the answer is yes. Context.
I know. I was thinking the same thing.
and honestly, this is anytime I do, have an interview like this, it's not a commercial. I want to make sure I'm like, we're having real conversations that's providing value.
Exactly.
So if you want to look up Cope Notes and you can't wait another 15 minutes, you can go to CopeNotes.com. But I want to make sure that we're getting that context in. Yes. But I didn't want you to feel like, wow, he just totally ignored my question.
I appreciate you looking out.
I do that with him regularly. I'm sure he's used to it.
So what you had asked about, David, is my past. And just a brief summary, I grew up in an abusive home around drugs and alcohol with multiple mental illnesses concurrently. So schizophrenia, bipolar 1, OCD, PTSD, generalized anxiety, big long list.
Wow.
And I was self-harming before grade school. Wow. I was hallucinating in public school around other kids and teachers. I mean, I never got to have I often feel like I didn't get to have a childhood, because when you grow up in that, like right now when I see, I'll ride my bike. Like I said, I enjoy riding my bike. I'll ride my bike and I'll see like a kid kicking a ball or something, just careless. And I'm like, what was that? What would that have been like? I'm so curious as to what it would have been like to be a child, even all the way through adolescence, being a teenager, going through puberty, what that classic experience would have been like, because I was delusional. I was psychotic. I wasn't even in reality for a majority of the time. I could put on a face though.
Right.
And
enough to function.
Yeah. And so Cope Notes is ultimately just a culmination of, a quarter century of pain that led to, in high school, I was formally diagnosed and had to attend mandatory treatment. So that's when I couldn't hide it any longer. I was 15 years old. My mom's driving me because I didn't even have my driver's license yet. And I started treatment, started taking medication, kicking and screaming, by the way. I wasn't like, it's time to get my life in check.
That wasn't your aha moment.
And so I started taking psychology courses, college level psychology in high school. Then I went to college, UCF, for psychology, and I was going to become a clinician until I got involved with NAMI, started doing peer support and public advocacy. And whenever people ask me what was your turning point moment, and you guys watch my TED Talk, so I'm not a believer in people needing a turning point. And that's because I almost called the talk. I almost titled the talk, Why Your Eureka Moment Might Never Come. And it's because I was postponing recovery.
Right.
I kept waiting. Oh, I'll have my rock bottom moment. I'll have my turning point. But ultimately, it was a bunch of really tiny moments that wouldn't bear repeating. Like one day when I went to put on deodorant, I put on, 8 swipes under this arm and then 8.5 under this arm, and it's uneven. And then I close my deodorant and I put it back in my dresser, and then I run out of my room and I force myself to deal with it. That's not a great story, but I have billions like it. So I didn't have one big moment. I had a bunch of tiny ones with no fanfare or, wouldn't make a good book. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
But I think that's relatable, right? Like as you say that, I'm thinking of all the moments, and then you look back and you're like, I don't want that moment to reoccur. I don't want that moment to happen. I don't want to be in that moment ever again. And that kind of brings you to where you are, right? And you just keep building up and building up. There's not just one pivot point that happens. It's those micro pivot points, I guess.
There's this pastor, Tim Keller, and he once said something that stuck with me like crazy. He goes, everyone thinks that their life is built on these huge, monumental shifts. But if your life is really exciting, really, really exciting, you have like 6 of those. If you're alive for 90 years, I mean, those huge, pivotal, like earth-shaking moments are few and far between. Those don't define you. It's the trillions of moments in between that make you who you are. And then those big shift moments just reveal who those little moments have made you.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
That's excellent. So then walk us beyond that then. So from there, you felt like you've been in control for 3 years, you said?
Well, I really started getting my act together and started being an active participant in my recovery probably around 22 or so. So keep in mind, I'm in treatment for years without participating, really. I show up, I hope that the doctor and the medication do their thing, I leave, and then I fall right back into my old habits. So I actually started applying myself in my early 20s. I would say like 20, 21, 22. That's when I actually started making an effort. And then probably around 23, 24 is when I started seeing the fruit of that. And then around when I had just turned 25, that's when I started weeding off my medication. It was around when I was 24, 25. I stopped going to treatment, and I really started being able to function without the casts that I was using. So it's not like I magically snapped out of it, but that was around the time, 24, 25, when I was like, wow, I can actually function without depending on things outside of myself.
Right.
Do you think that maybe it was from, I'm just thinking out loud, from what you would learn from the treatment and from just your schooling as well, that you got to a point that you realized that now that you owned it, and like you said, you were an active participant now, that you maybe could just apply that knowledge and kind of do it yourself? Would that make sense?
So the biggest mistake that I made that I hope nobody else makes in recovery is don't waste the first X years not participating, because you just draw it out. Like, I don't think anyone has to spend as long in treatment as I did. I mean, if someone had all the same diagnoses as me, all the same, grew up with the same childhood trauma and everything, but they started intentionally participating and applying themselves from day one, they'd be in treatment for half the time I was.
Right.
I just wasted time. I dragged my feet because of my attitude.
Right. Like you're just going through the motions at that point. Wow.
Yeah. The knowledge that I gained in treatment and going to school for psych, without that, I wouldn't be able to do anything for myself. So I'm not anti-treatment. I'm saying if you do go to treatment, pay attention.
Right.
They're teaching you good stuff. Yeah.
If you're going to be there, be there.
Mm-hmm. Right? Otherwise, save your money, because it can get expensive.
So this leads you to create Cope Notes. And can you explain for the listeners what Cope Notes is and its purpose, its cause?
Yeah, I'm tempted to just kind of kick this can down the road further and like make all the listeners go, "Oh man, are you kidding me?"
We can always do some trivia.
Like be that dramatic ending right at the end of the episode.
Yeah, we could go right into trivia and then just really pick up the listeners.
You know what though? You know how cool that would be? I want to do that. I want to do
all right,
trivia.
yeah, let's go into trivia.
Because I want to see if listeners actually want to know. Stick with us for the whole episode.
Well,
you're going to have fun.
Trivia is always great. I mean,
Amen.
Who doesn't love trivia?
Let's do it. I love switching up like this.
All right, so we are going to go.
Our episodes are very organic.
Yeah,
if you
we're
can't
going to go
tell.
to the intro right now, and then we're going to get right into it.
I love that this is a thing.
Welcome everyone to Brand Culture Trivia, where the points don't matter, but the brand does.
In this segment, we play a trivia game against our guest. I'm your host, Mark Mosier, along with my co-host, David Morrow. David, tell us about the rules and the awesome prizes.
Absolutely. The rules are as follows. You get to guess as fast as you can. You get as many answers as you want, and the first one to give the right answer wins a point. The first contestant to 3 points wins the game.
What do you get if you win?
Glad you asked. You get 14,684 Brandology bucks.
What is that worth?
Those are absolutely worthless, but we might send you a sticker for playing. So let's get started with Brand Culture Trivia.
David, why don't you spin the wheel of trivia and see what our first question is?
All right, here I go. It is a heavy, heavy wheel. And that is why grown men really should come up with something more creative.
I love that.
That's what we've got. Okay, so we are going to, I'm going to say the slogan, the company slogan, you're going to name the brand or the product name. You're both competing against each other. Johnny, you're going up against Mark, and the first one to guess the right answer wins the point. First one to 3 points wins the game. Now, keep in mind that you can guess as many answers as you want. So if you're going to say Visa, don't just say Visa. Say Visa, American Express,
Diners Club.
and MasterCard. Don't say Diners Club because it's not 1940. But that's the type of thing that we're looking for.
Though, right?
So for it was a thing back when Sinatra was alive. So like, for example, Just Do It would be Nike, right? Got Milk would be the
Milk
products, whatever.
I hope that's
milk,
the first question for an easy point.
Yeah. All right. So here we go. Question 1. Company slogan. The best a man can get.
Gillette.
Wow. Okay.
Barbershop.
Johnny, well done.
Oh,
Okay.
now wait a minute. In all fair recognition, so the listeners understand, this guy is a branding expert. Like, he literally spent part of his life creating brands.
Used to be.
Used to be, but yeah.
We'll see if I can
So
carry
the
it,
listeners
though.
understand, Mark, you're a host on this show. You've had
Yeah,
that
you're the
question
host of a show
like
called
30
Brandology.
times. And
Who has the
still
leg
missed it.
up?
You still
All right.
missed it. All right. As Mark Mosher comes up with socially acceptable excuses not to know the obvious. All right.
Quickest I could dig out.
What's in your wallet?
MasterCard.
Card, Visa,
Nope.
American Express.
Nope. Keep going. What's in your wallet?
Visa, MasterCard, American
Oh,
Express. Discover.
What's in your
Chase. No. Oh, it's freaking
Wachovia.
Samuel L.
Wells
Jackson.
Fargo.
wallet? Jennifer Garner is one of the spokespeople.
Wachovia, Chase.
Very
Wells
close.
Fargo. Wells Fargo.
Very close.
Put it down,
Very
1
close.
point.
Oh
Where's
my
Wells
word. Ameri.
I'm gonna
Wait.
call it.
American Express.
Wait. Oh, go for it. It's gonna take me too
Capital
long.
One.
Yep.
Oh, are you
Capital
serious?
One. Yeah.
Son of a gun.
All right.
I saw when I was in LA, I was outside of a comedy club that I was teaching at. I used to teach improv comedy.
Oh, very cool.
And I was outside of a comedy club in Hollywood. Someone walks past me and it's Samuel L. Jackson.
No way.
Wow. That's
By the way, I was in LA for a long time, never saw any celebrities. I don't know how that happens to people. But I remember him walking by me and I gave him a nod like, you're Samuel L. Jackson. I didn't say anything. I just like gave him a little nod, like, I recognize you. And he gave a little nod, like, thank you for not ruining my day, because I'm obviously going somewhere. And then I looked back at that moment and I was like, I wish I would have gone up and been like, oh, you were so great in that Capital One commercial, instead of mentioning any movie that he's ever done.
That's great.
Now, didn't you start an improv club at UCF?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Oh, yeah. Those were the days.
I'd like to see some of those videos.
I don't know that we were funny, but we were consistent. That's for sure.
If you're nothing else, be consistent.
That's our tagline.
Yeah, if nothing else, be consistent.
That's our tagline. We're not good at podcasts, but we're consistent. Let me tell you. Okay, question 2, because it's 1-0. Johnny over Mark. All right. Is it in you?
Gatorade?
Gillette.
Did you just say Gatorade?
Gillette.
Yeah.
He got it.
Nice.
Seriously?
2-0. 2-0. Let me just explain and do a little math. This is the part where we do a little math.
Wait, I need to get out my tax calculator and the green hat.
No, I think we're good. I think we're good. If Mark if Mark had 100,000 times as many points as he has right now, you'd still be winning. All right.
Yeah, I'm gonna clean out all these Brandology bucks.
I'm telling you,
I'm gonna buy a house.
Boy, they are worth some serious money. And
the
that
stock
stake
market
right now is
AMD went up.
14,864 Brandology bucks.
Love it.
Or, the snack that smiles back, number 3.
Goldfish.
No.
Wow.
Oh, yes.
Man, congratulations,
I
Johnny
need to
Crowder,
contest- I
with
need
the
to
win.
contest that.
14,864 Brandology books are yours. As you can see on our e-commerce site, which unfortunately is
It's still bound.
but we have Lamborghinis on there. We've got convertible Bentleys, whatever the sky's the limit in those Brandology bucks. Boy, when they become real, they're going to be worth something. And we are going to owe a lot of people.
People. And now look.
Just to be aware, they're also paid in Bitcoin to an offshore account.
Yeah,
exactly.
I figured that.
That's right. And we'll have to testify in Congress why we manipulated Reddit to get a bunch of people to invest. So.
Hey everyone, as you know, we routinely discuss how risky it is for brands to rely just on passwords or weak old-fashioned multi-factor authentication systems. It's your brand and we want you to protect it. Today we're excited to be sponsored by a next-generation authentication platform, Beyond Identity. Did you know 80% of breaches are the result of stolen credentials? Why does your organization still rely on passwords as part of your authentication process? Beyond Identity enforces continuous risk-based authentication, a fundamental tenet of a zero-trust security program. Check the link in our show notes and go to beyondidentity.com/podcast to get a free demo. That's beyondidentity.com/podcast to get a free demo. beyondidentity.com/podcast for a free demo today. Or simply click the link in our show notes below. And now the show.
Okay, let's get back to it. How have you addressed your friends and family now that you have more control? How do you address the people that knew you when you didn't have the control that you did? Like in 12-step programs, there's you go back and you make amends, right? Is there something that you do in the course of mental health advancement?
So maybe there should have been a more formal process, but I just tried to reach back out to people and say like, hey, I am doing a bit better now. Thanks for being patient with me when I wasn't. And the truth is, some people will not talk to me anymore. Yep. Like I lost interpersonal relationships, and unfortunately they think he's still as sick as he was. I don't want to be around someone who's that depressed and who's self-harming and who, and I get that. I just wish so badly that I could, thank them for their patience when we did spend time together as friends and let them know that I'm doing better now. Unfortunately, you don't always have that opportunity. But one thing that was really interesting is when I reached out to like my primary friend group, I'm not super close with them anymore, unfortunately. And I think this has something to do with it. I reached out to them as more of my story was starting to come out online, and you can, if you Google me, you will be able to read about some things that have happened in my life. And when you have that information out there, you don't feel as concerned about your friends finding out because they could just look it up. Right. I talked to my sort of core group of high school friends, and I was like, did you guys know that I was dealing with some of this stuff? And I thought they were going to say, no, we had no idea. Like, you always, shaved and you ironed your shirt and you did your homework, and we just, you were like so put together that we had no idea. And they were all like, oh yeah,
oh wow,
we like obviously knew. And I just thought, why the heck didn't you guys do anything?
Somebody
anything. And they said, well, it would just be awkward.
Oh, really?
And I was like, wow, I could literally be dead right now because you were uncomfortable.
You didn't want to be awkward. Yeah.
So that's why I'm so passionate about advocacy. Like, that's why I want to change culture, because culture made them not engage in conversation because they learned, like you said, bury your head in the sand. And I could be dead right now
because somebody didn't want to feel awkward.
Or they didn't want to pick up the phone, right?
Yeah, or any number of activities that could have helped to change the narrative.
And it's not, I want to clarify, it's not their responsibility. Like, they were not responsible for my mental health. But I can't believe that the reason they didn't do anything isn't because they didn't want to. It's because they thought it'd be weird. Mm-hmm. Oh my word, that's a cultural thing that we can change.
Right. Oh, absolutely.
And speaking of changing, so you're really changing not only the way mental health is viewed, but how it's delivered. So now tell the listeners about Cope Notes.
Brilliant. Okay, if a listener is stuck with us for a half hour waiting to hear this,
God bless them.
I love you, listeners. Thank you for staying. In fact, if you fast forwarded to this point,
shame on you.
Go back, you listen to trivia, then you come back. You earn this.
Right.
So Cope Notes is built on the idea that I mentioned earlier, where it's not one big thing, it's a ton of little things.
Right.
So Cope Notes uses daily text messages to improve mental and emotional health. So they're texts really short, easy to read, written by peers with lived experience, reviewed by mental health professionals, and they're psychology facts or advice or a journaling prompt or some encouragement, whatever it is that we send, is designed to interrupt your day at a random time. You're sitting in traffic, your boss is yelling at you or whatever, and you get a text, and it literally intercepts a charge being sent between two synapses in your brain to help your brain physically rewire itself to form new neural pathways associated with positive thoughts. So it's a fancy way of saying that if you use Cope Notes, it will help you learn to think in healthier patterns. It is a brain training tool that changes your attitude, your mentality, the way that you think and interpret information. It's like brain surgery without the scalpel.
And that's what I thought was so cool. So, because I know the listeners are going to have a lot of questions, so I'm going to try to think of everything they would. So does everybody get the same text? Do you get the same text as everybody else?
Well, if you were to sign up for Cope Notes when I first started it, like day one, yes, you'd get the same text as everybody else, because I didn't know what I was doing. I'm not from a tech background. Right. So I kind of sent one mass text to everybody, and it was like the text of the day. But then we started getting a little more nuanced and started growing the platform, and we built a system that actually prevents any two people from getting the same text at the same time. That's so now awesome. If you sign up and then David signs up, even if it's at the exact same time, you two will never get the same text at the same time ever, no matter how long you stay subscribed. And you'll never get the same text twice, which is awesome.
That's awesome. So what about, can you text back, or is there any back and forth, or could you use that as like almost like a personal diary, right? Like maybe you could record your response to that text and see how I don't know. I'm just thinking out loud here.
Yeah, we encourage people to text back, and it's called digital journaling.
This
is not a text conversation. where you text Cope Notes and we text you, and then you text us and we text you, and it's a streamlined real-time conversation. There's other stuff that does that. We don't do that. Digital journaling is designed to improve emotional IQ, emotional independence, and the accuracy of your self-report, which means every therapist in the world will tell you to journal because it helps you assess what you're actually thinking and feeling. So you're not typing out an email and deleting it. You're not writing out a letter and burning it or throwing it in the garbage, because that literally tells you that your feelings are worthless.
Yeah.
You type out this big scathing vent of a text message and you press send. And then you're like, you know what? I have more to say. You type out more and you send it. Anytime, any day, you say whatever you want, and it's completely confidential, anonymous. No one's going to read that text thread except for you. So because people don't carry a physical journal in 2021, this is the next best thing.
I think that's awesome. So what if someone were in a crisis or something and got your text? What could they leverage the text to communicate, or what would work in something like that?
So we have a partnership with the Crisis Text Line. And if ever someone is in crisis, we do a soft handoff to the Crisis Text Line, because basically it's kind of like, if you think of the Crisis Text Line as the dentist doing a root canal or something, Cope Notes is brushing your teeth and flossing.
Okay.
So right. if you need to speak with someone in real time and you are in a crisis, we do that handoff because someone else is better at that than us. But that's 1%, maybe 1% of your life. If you have a really crazy life, 1% of your life you're in crisis. Normally it's less than that. But for the 99% of the time that you're not in crisis, but you still need that support, that's where Cope Notes can help.
Okay. I'm just thinking because I love this platform. I love this whole idea. This is so cool. What if you wanted to get like a group involved? If you had, say, a church group or coworkers, can you sign up as a group, or is there some type of subscription like that?
Yeah, we have a family plan, which is like obviously for your literal family.
Yeah.
But then we have group subscriptions. So we work with anywhere from like ultimate Frisbee teams to YMCAs to workplace wellness initiatives for employers, student wellness for school districts. Even last year we started working with governments. So we can work with a group of any size.
Yeah, I'm just trying to think after I sign up who else I can get to sign up. So.
Dude, that's been the coolest thing about Cope Notes. And this is going to blow your mind because you guys are like from a world that focuses on how to get the word out and how to get the right word out.
I thought you were going to say because we're old.
No.
You're old. You'll get this because you're old.
Not quite. But I can change what we'll go back. We'll edit that in post and make sure I said that.
Right.
We haven't done any traditional advertising. And
wow.
my is in advertising. So when Mark, you just said, who can I tell?
Right.
That's the only, we have users in 93 countries right now. And we've never sent an ad to any, we haven't even run ads in America, let alone anywhere else. So it's been people telling people, telling people, telling people. So word of mouth is the only way we've grown this far.
That's fantastic. So
that's fantastic.
What's the best way to reach out to you, or we're going to obviously give everybody a link to your LinkedIn, to your website. Is that really the best way to get involved or to reach out to you?
Yeah, I encourage you not to message me on social media. I'm getting worse at that, like on Instagram and Facebook and stuff. I get
I like the disclaimer though. That's good. That's fair.
But I do try to be active. However, if you fill out a contact form on our website, that's seen by our whole, someone's catching that. So if you need to get in touch with me directly, filling out the contact form on the website is probably your best bet. But the website, the cool thing about the website is a link to our podcast is right there in the main navigation. Obviously, all the gift and personal subscription options are right there. There's also my TED Talk is on the About page. There's a contact form. So that's like your one-stop shop, the best bang for buck for a single URL.
Mm-hmm. Right. And I would encourage the listeners to go to your LinkedIn. You got some really good material that you post. Like
you do.
Today, you just had the one about next time somebody asks, what is peer support? Right. You got the video. So that's what I'm saying. They got to follow you on LinkedIn. So I would encourage them to do that as well. And we'll be sure to provide that link.
And I'll say this too, when I said I'm not as active on social media, during this stage of my life, I am trying to be more active on LinkedIn specifically. So I might not be as responsive on Instagram or Facebook, or I don't even have a Twitter. But LinkedIn, I'm trying to be better about. So if someone out there is a LinkedIn person, you might have some luck contacting me there.
Yep, absolutely. So let me ask you this. What is on the horizon for you? Meaning, if you look back a year from now and say, wow, I really accomplished things that mean something to Cope Notes, to my mission, what couple things would have to happen for you to feel that way?
I think the thing that stands out for me the most, and this is a great question, is the Lamborghini that I'm going to own with all my Brandology bucks.
Love that.
I love where your
I'm
head's at, Johnny. I love where your head's at.
Love that.
No,
Flattery gets people everywhere.
No, I think ultimately what I really want to start doing more is, and anyone who's run a business will be able to relate with what I'm about to say. And in fact, I bet a lot of parents would be able to relate too. I'm not a parent, so I'm kind of wandering into unknown territory there, but I'm trying to spend more of my time on tasks on which my time is best used. So, for example, right now, I do a lot of admin stuff for Cope Notes. I do a lot of sales stuff for Cope Notes. I do a lot of customer success stuff for Cope Notes and back end and all of this stuff. But I know that my time is best spent on public advocacy, like speaking at events, giving keynotes and stuff like that. Working on creative for the brand, like obviously because that's my background. I love it, like doing copy and design and stuff. And product, innovating our offering to provide more value for people. So instead of saying like, well, I want to hit 1 million subscribers and I want to hit $100 million in revenue. Of course, I want all of those things. But in terms of what would feel like a personal success for me, it's making sure that a year from now, I can look back and say, wow, over the last year, I've really managed my time in such a way that I've spent a majority of my work hours leveraging my skills and passions and interests rather than being the catch-all custodian that you have to be in the first 3 years of any business.
Yep.
That's excellent.
Well, Johnny, I want to thank you guys. This has been really good. I love the positive energy, the vibe that you've got. I know the listeners will be able to pick up on it. Want to be sure everybody click on the links in the summary and in the bio. I'm going to obviously have to go Google Johnny now and find out about some of his other stories we didn't quite touch on.
I have to tell you something about Google right now. We are in a conversation with Google about trying to figure out how we can replace the Google Knowledge Panel result when you Google Johnny Crowder, because right now, so FX, the network, purchased a Google Knowledge Panel for Johnny Crowder, which is a fictional character on the show Justified. So
wow.
We're trying to get with Google and be like, hey, is there some way we can like differentiate so that people don't go Johnny Crowder and they Google it and they go, I didn't know he was on Justified? Because trust me, I've gotten LinkedIn messages from people who are like, how do you manage being a professional actor and running a company? And I'm like, geez Louise, like that's a fictional.
Always busy. Just respond. I'm always busy, but feel free to reach out.
Yeah. I'm a true overachiever, head of the class.
Yeah.
That's great. Hey, well, Johnny, thank you so much for your time. It's been absolutely enlightening, and I direct everybody, if you can, please watch Johnny's TED Talk. Check out Cope Notes. All of the links are down below on the story for the podcast. Really interesting stuff, man. Really interesting stuff.
Yeah, thanks for being on, Johnny.
Yeah. So this won't be our last talk. I promise you that. So we will be in touch. We will continuously monitor and watch you, and we will stay in touch.
Thank you guys so much for having me. I have one last little quip.
Absolutely.
For listeners.
Please.
Yeah.
This is just sort of a caveat. I hope people have stayed for this long. A lot of times when I do an interview like this, people will leave thinking, Cope Notes sounds nice for somebody else, or that TED Talk, I'll just send it to somebody else without watching it because it won't really apply to me. It's more for my daughter or my coworker. I encourage you to just operate under, this imaginary assumption. Just pretend, act as if you have a brain that deserves support. So just for the next hour after you listen to this podcast, consider, what if that TED Talk could help me? What if Cope Notes could help me? Like, don't exclude yourself from this because I wasted years of my life doing that, and I don't want that for you. So that's my whole
great advice, Johnny, because that's something that people do with mental health for everything, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right? They're like, well, it's not me, but I know a friend who's messed up. Let me just send it out.
And what do you think your friend says about you?
Yeah,
right,
exactly.
right. They're thinking, I wish he would be a willing participant in this own self-help. That's what that sounds like. That's
excellent, man. That's great perspective. I love reading your stuff. I love watching you. So we will stay in touch.
Thank you guys so much for having me. This was a hoot. Absolutely.
All right. Well, that's our goal.
Purely organic.
That's our goal.
We are 100% organic.
All right.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Well, that wraps this up. Thanks for joining, everybody. Hope you got value out of digging deeper behind the scenes of security and cybercrime today. Please don't forget to help keep this going by subscribing free to our YouTube channel at Cybercrime Junkies Podcast, and download and enjoy all of our past episodes on Apple and Spotify podcasts so we can continue to bring you more of what matters. This is Cybercrime Junkies, and we thank you for joining us.